My first guest is no fool, and not an old fool. He's not even old. He's my old friend, Lembit Opik, the former Lib Dem MP. Lembit, welcome back to these sunny shores.
Delightful to speak to you, my friend George, and thank you for that very nice talk-up as well. It's great to be back, maybe being bitten in other ways, but not by snakes.
No, well, that's right. We'll talk later about your plans, because I do hope you're not giving politics up. But let's talk first, if we may, about Vince Cable. He's come over all precious that the Daily Telegraph performed some heinous act of entrapment. But of course, that only works if you say one thing in public and a different thing in private, doesn't it?
Well, in a sense, I do have a slightly different view to you in terms of what's happened here. I think that the Telegraph, who I haven't been impressed with really for some time now, basically sent two spies who lied, secretly reported them and published it. And that breaks the relationship of trust between off-the-record comments and the media. So maybe we'll talk about that more, but I think that he was misled. Now, on the other hand, of course, like yourself, I tend to say what I think, even when it's uncomfortable to say it in public. So maybe the phraseology he used has got him into trouble, even though it's colourful rather than disingenuous. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think he's been defending it so much as other people. But you're right to say it's been a bit of a furore, and Vince Cable has paid the price by losing some of his responsibilities.
Well, we've all paid the price, because by losing that responsibilities, we've got a minister who has regularly treated us to his rose-tinted view of Mr. Murdoch, but he, Mr. Hunt, I carefully say, Mr. Hunt from West Kent, Mr. Hunt, he has no problem, it would appear, in performing his quasi-judicial task of adjudicating on Mr. Murdoch's takeover bid for B-Sky B. So we've actually all lost from that.
As you rightly say, Hunt from Kent has basically got the job because, theoretically at least, Vince Cable sounded partial to people off the record who he believed to be constituents. You're absolutely right to point out that his replacement has been gushing in his praise of Rupert Murdoch, and leaving aside whatever one may think about Sky and Murdoch himself, it seems really strange to me that Cable, who actually didn't really say anything which was necessarily prejudicial, it was big words, but it wasn't prejudicial, lost his job to somebody who's very likely to be on Murdoch's side. And I just don't really understand what's going on. I mean, as you know, I've never voted Conservative in my life, and although I supported the coalition, I've got real doubts about aspects of the coalition, the Conservative Party values. And what we're seeing here is apparently an arguably impartial person being replaced by someone who's been overtly partial in the past. I don't see how it works. I'm not sure if you do, George, or your listeners.
Well, were you surprised by the animus towards the Tories from some of your erstwhile colleagues who were tape recorded by the Telegraph?
No, leaving aside the cable business, and I'd have let him keep his responsibilities. One of the reasons why I do have a slightly different view to you in terms of what the Telegraph did is nothing could be less newsworthy than finding out that half a dozen or more Liberal Democrat ministers don't actually share all of the values or the policy views of the Conservatives. I actually felt somewhat reassured by it. What I'm not sure about is why they were apologising for this. They should have simply said, well, of course there are differences, otherwise we might as well merge the two damn parties. But it didn't seem newsworthy to me. In an ironic kind of way, the Telegraph are obviously going for the Lib Dems at the moment, and I don't understand why they're trying to destabilise a Conservative-led government, but the Telegraph have basically proved that there are differences of view, and the Lib Dems are still thinking for themselves, and that's ironically been quite helpful with the membership, who may be slightly reassured that the party hasn't simply sold out to Tory values.
Well, they'll not be reassured, of course, if they're looking at the opinion poll ratings. There was a by-election in East London a week past Thursday, where the Liberal Democrats polled 33 votes, which, from my research, is the lowest vote ever recorded by a governing party in British political history, certainly since records began. And your party is currently standing in single figures in the national opinion poll ratings. This is going to do for you, isn't it, this coalition government?
Well, I've got a vested interest in the party being stronger than that because, as you know, George, I'm hoping to get the nomination as the Lib Dem candidate for mayor, and hopefully being independent-minded in a way that your listeners would find agreeable. But I'm just wondering whether the poll rating is less to do with the recent revelations, which, if anything, might actually help the party, and has got more to do with some other feelings that the Lib Dems have actually gone along too much with Tory thinking. And I'm, of course, thinking about something which happened partly while I was away in the jungle, and that's the tuition fees debacle, where it seemed obvious to me that, regardless of the policy, if one is so sanctimonious as the Lib Dems were, saying this is a principle, we'll absolutely fight the Tories and Labour on increasing tuition fees, you don't turn round and basically irritate and disengage with one of the most important electoral segments that the Lib Dems depend on. So actually, I suspect that's more to do with not differentiating enough. And I hope that the leadership learns that they can't just take this for granted. And I've spoken privately with Lib Dem MPs who simply don't understand the logic that possess the leadership to make that change.
Now, you say that you're running for the mayoral nomination. Who's your competition, and when will we know if you've got the gig?
Well, on the first one, at the moment there is no competition. A number of people went forward to be shortlisted as the potential candidate. I was the only one who actually fulfilled the criteria, so the shortlist is currently one. And the Lib Dems have decided they need to give the London Lib Dem membership a choice of potential candidate. And to the best of my knowledge, that's been postponed till next summer. But I'm not waiting that long, George, because really, I think, I don't want to leave politics. While celebrity is all very well, as you know yourself, they can perform a role. It's not got the same depth as actually trying to make a difference to people. So, so I'm hoping that you've
got my vote, Lembit.
Oh, thank you.
Lembit, did you pull in that jungle?
I did not, and I wasn't looking.
Well, you see, now I knew that you would lie in that answer because you have the right to lie, because it's a totally improper question. So that answers the question that I was going to ask you. If the news of the world are asking you questions to which they have absolutely no right to an answer, is it legitimate for a public figure or a private figure to simply lie to them?
I would tend my own. I can't preach to others. My own view is that sometimes it's absolutely beyond the domain of public interest to have to share things of a personal nature, and one which obviously doesn't affect me, but has affected colleagues and a good friend of mine, Nigel Evans, recently, is sexual orientation. And I actually think sometimes. My personal opinion is that somebody said to me, well, I lied about for example, being gay because I didn't think it was anyone's business. For me, that's a legitimate defence. Whether or not I do it myself is a different matter. Probably tend to simply say that's a private matter, not willing to comment. But I would defend other people who took the view that they were right to defend their privacy on the basis of unreasonable interest.
Okay. Lembit, we began to lose the line, but we didn't lose the message. Lembit Opik is back, and he's hoping to be the mayor of London. You heard it here first. 08717 22 33 44.